Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Inchstones podcast. As you know, I have been so blessed to connect with the four ladies from the Moms Talk Autism podcast and platform, and being able to share and listen and hear testimony of their one-on-one experience from diagnoses on through their current day with their autistic children has been such a gift to the Inchstones community. And I am thrilled here to have Shannon Korza, mom to Gracie, and hearing about Shannon, even before we press record, talking about just these massive societal expectations that we have whenever we have a child that's diagnosed with autism, and that journey is where we're going to begin here. Shannon, thanks for being here today on Inchstones.
Thank you for having us. We just love chatting with you. So I'm glad we all kind of jumped on with this.
I selfishly get one on one time. So what we said before we press record, take us back to the beginning. What did you feel when you first had the diagnosis for Gracie?
Yeah, it's funny because before they ever tested her for autism, they tested her for hearing loss because she was not responding to her name, right? And I had told all the doctors, like, she doesn't have a hearing problem because if she hears Mickey Mouse, she comes running. Okay,
Exactly.
there's not a hearing problem. And so I feel like for a while, I kind of used that, like, as okay, she's not autistic. She has a hearing problem. Like, it's a hearing thing. There's something going on. When we first got the diagnosis, unlike my co-hosts, I was in denial. I could not even bring myself to say that she was autistic. It was like the A word. I couldn't say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And, looking back now, or 7, 8 years later, I know that that had nothing to do with her, but it was 100% to do with me. I was terrified. I knew how to raise a neurotypical daughter. I'd done it before.
Yeah.
And I was just, in that instance, petrified that I was not going to know what to do. I wasn't going to be enough for her. Like, I already felt like I winged it with my first one anyway. I was young, right? Like, and then she was neurotypical, right? Like, if I'm winging it with a neurotypical child, I was just broken and I wouldn't admit it. I didn't even tell my husband. I don't think that I was broken. It would, I rocked Gracie to sleep every night. Like, it was just our thing. I rocked her to sleep every night. I knew she was going to be the last baby. I put her to bed.
Yes.
And there would be nights that I would literally just sit next to her little toddler bed and just cry. Like, I would just cry over her at night. And again, I knew she was the same. Like, she didn't change, right? When she got the diagnosis, she was always the same little great, hilarious human that she had been. I think it was just, I didn't understand what the expectation on me was going to be. And I was so, so afraid that I wasn't going to live up to whatever it was.
When you look back on that, do you feel like you almost feel robbed of the possibility to sit in the different kind of path? Like, that the gap is what caused the friction, that you were sold and lived this typical motherhood with your oldest.
Yeah.
And then the diagnosis shifted, put you in another lane, but we've never been sold as a culture in motherhood to just accept the different lane, or that the different lane is going to be okay.
Yeah. And it's funny because, Gracie is about to turn 11 and I still grieve things. Like, when I had Maya, I was 23. She was like my buddy. We did everything together. We did all the tailgates together. We go to dinner together. And there's like so many things that I can't do with Gracie. And I still grieve that, like, very heavily to this day. And it's interesting because Gracie has no desire to do the things that, so it's not like Gracie doesn't care, right?
Yeah, I mean, similarly, like we're actually the most similar of any of the other, like your Mom's Talk Autism ladies, that I have a typical oldest daughter, and then Millie. So that is exactly the same kind of reality that I had, where I had this like typical little toddler who was just like, this is great. Like, we can go to brunch, we can have girly time, and then the rug ripped out was more on me than it was on Millie. Millie doesn't care to do those things.
She doesn't know any better. Like, she's living.
Maybe it's also just this like beautiful proof of like, well, does that really matter?
I know. I always say, like, I wish I could the amount of money I would pay to just live for an hour in Gracie's head to just see the world the way that she sees it. I don't know. I've come to this place as I've gotten older and I've like experienced real grief. Mm-hmm. Losing people who are really close to me as we get older, going through the autism journey. And I actually have, because we had a baby monitor in Gracie's room, I have like a snapshot of me one night over her bed, just bawling. And I have to say that, like, while it's really, really sad, I have really I don't wanna say that I, like, love that grief moment or that feeling of, like, brokenness, but there's just something really real about being broken and allowing yourself to be broken and, like, not feeling the shame behind it.
Well,
Um,
say that again.
it just
That is so spot on. It's that you're
Mhm.
yes, it's not just feeling the moment of grief and sadness for yourself. It's that it doesn't have the shame attached to it.
No, and I can look back at that now. Like, if I had seen that photo maybe 5, 6 years ago, I may have felt differently, right? And
Right.
social media in your phone, so it always pops up, like, year
Yeah.
after year, right? And which
Yeah.
is a blessing and a curse at the same time. And so, I think now that I've experienced other real, true grief, I've really learned how to just sit in sadness and sit in grief and sit in sorrow. Not that I wanna stay there for too long. So I don't know, I guess I kind of have this perspective of maybe not being robbed, but just a different life path, right? Like, I've gotten to live 2 very different life paths with both of my daughters.
Yeah. When do you think that greatest internal shift happened where you realized that you were holding this differently than you were at the very beginning?
I had this so growing up, Christmas was always a huge thing. Like, my grandparents always made Christmas this amazing thing. We had, like, all of these traditions, yada, yada, and I've kept those up with Maya, and I was planning on keeping them up with Gracie, and to some extent we do, but the moment everything really, really shifted for me, I wanna say Gracie was probably 3. I think she was probably 3, and we were at a Christmas event, and, we were there with friends and my cousin who both all of them are very close with us, so Gracie can be her crazy, silly self with them.
Mhm.
But I was still, like, new, right? Gracie got diagnosed right before her 2nd birthday, I think, and I just always had it envisioned on exactly how these things were going to go, and we were gonna take the photos with Santa and, Mrs. Claus, and we were gonna do this, and we were gonna have cider, and we were gonna and, everyone was in line for Santa, and Gracie wanted literally
By the
nothing.
way, because I
She
think
wanted
this is gonna resonate with so many people.
Yeah, she wanted nothing to do with it, and I, for some reason, had this grand idea that it was gonna go swimmingly, and I didn't bring a stroller, which I have an eloper, so I don't know what made me really feel like that was a great idea, but,
Yeah.
wishful thinking. And she kept running off, and she was just, like, more interested in running around this tree than she was of participating in anything else, and it became a point where it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and get the stroller," because there's an electric train that runs through, and it's like, now it could be, like, a safety problem, and I just remember leaving her with my cousin while I walked back out to the car to get the stroller, and I just broke down. I was, like, at the back of my Jeep, and I was getting the stroller out, and I just sat in the back of my SUV, and I just bawled. Like, I just bawled. And I knew then and there, like, I have to shift my perspective. I can't, like, I cannot keep forcing my ideas of what these events are going to look like
I know.
on Gracie because she's different. She doesn't want the same things. And that was really, I have this Facebook post that I made that comes up every year, like we were talking
Yeah.
about, where I'm holding a glass of white wine. I'm like sitting by the Christmas tree. And again, God, I cry a lot. If you knew me in person, I don't cry a lot, but I was, like, in tears about that, and it was just this breaking moment where I knew I had to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever, after those more memorable moments of grief and sort of collapse and acknowledging that this is going to be so transformative in ways you don't even realize, is there any part of you that still wakes up and thinks this is really unfair?
100%. I am not okay, and I'm hopefully well, I'm gonna make someone mad because you always make somebody mad.
Yes.
I am not an autism is a superhero mom or a superpower mom. I'm not. My husband and I have had this discussion so many times that if we could somehow start over and have Gracie be neurotypical, would we? And the answer is yes. And we're not saying that for us. Like, my daughter's life is harder. I had a moment this weekend where we had a birthday party for my sweet little niece. She turned 1. We hosted it at our house. And Gracie tried to play with one of the other little girls in the pool, which, by the way, is not something she does very often. And the playing looked different, and it made the parents really nervous. And it scared the little girl. And we saw the whole thing. Like, Gracie wasn't trying to hurt anyone or
No,
anything like
no,
that.
no.
It just looked very different. And my husband and I's heart broke. Like, we're like, she's just trying to play with this little girl. Like, why is it so hard, right? And so I'm not I'm just never gonna be that mom that is like, "Autism is such a wonderful gift," you know?
Because it creates the stacked struggle that I believe I actually probably similar to you. I'm no longer in the camp of autism as a superpower. I
Mhm.
believe that there's gifts that rise from pain and growth in having a reality that is so not expected, but
Yeah,
autism itself is not a superpower. I
yeah.
think what it reveals to us as typical humans can be seen as growth and perspective, but I think when you talk about the play, I similarly have a lot of very guttural moments where my daughter is simply trying to engage, and it is awkward and it's socially unacceptable, and it ends up creating another wave of deep grief that this little girl can't even be seen in her desire to play. And so
Well,
then it
that and, like, what type of reinforcement did she just get, right? So it's like she's trying, and
yeah,
then she got negative reinforcement, essentially, for trying,
that's right, which
right?
which psychologically gosh, I could go down the rabbit hole on this from a parent.
Mhm.
Children seek that even the other girl that she was actually probably attempting to play with too, there's all these feedback loops, negative and
Yeah.
positive, happening at the same time.
Yeah, and it's like, did anyone sit down and talk with the other little girl about kind of what happened? No, I guarantee probably
No, because
not.
that's a jump. That's an amplification jump in
Yeah.
typical parents being asked to do something that they, for all intents and purposes, don't have to do. That's something that also rises a lot, I know, within your community and mine, is that none of this the community support does often come down to others living it and not those outside the
Mhm.
arena. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's bad, it's just that you asking someone to jump into a reality that's not theirs to be lived is such an ask on a capacity level that most just don't
Mhm.
choose to do it. Not
Yeah.
because they're cruel, not because they're evil, but because they've never been conditioned to think that that other reality exists for a chance for growth and development. We just
Yeah.
haven't.
Well, and it could have been such a good learning experience for both sides.
I know.
And I think too, this was not my acquaintance, it was an acquaintance of my cousins, right? So, like, my friends, I would
Right.
I would have no problem sitting down with their children because we do talk about Gracie and her diagnosis very openly. We want them to be able to ask questions, we want them
Mhm.
to be curious. And so in that instance, it felt a little weird jumping in because it wasn't my relationship, right? I guess.
Right.
But yeah, so it's like, there's still things as recent as Saturday that just feel like it kicks you in the gut.
How is your older daughter's relationship with Gracie now? And how has that evolved?
She's very protective. Actually, that whole thing this weekend made her actually really angry. Maya is very protective of Gracie, and when she was really upset after everything happened on Saturday, and her words were and she was mad, and she's like, "I can't even come up with the words that I want, but, like, when people look at my sister like she's a freak, it pisses me off."
Yep.
And she's like, "They don't even know her. They don't know how sweet she is," and she's just because we know Gracie and we know her heart, right? So it's hard. Like, sibling relationships are so difficult because they have to help so much. They have to grow up so fast. And I try very hard to remember, and I tell my husband a lot, like, Maya is not her mom. It is not her responsibility to do these things. Like, in a sibling relationship, yes, like, I was a big sister, I
Yes,
babysat, that's life. We all
totally.
help out, we all do these things, right?
Right.
But then at the same time, Maya and my cousin Heather are the only two people in our life who we can trust day to day with Gracie
I
all
know.
the time.
Because they see the inside the walls, the insular
Mhm.
what I believe is almost an extension of this maternal instinct and data that siblings have for their deeply, autistic version siblings is that they're tracking the micro patterns that really no teacher, no therapist, no educator, no community member, no typical babysitter would ever pick up on. Not because those babysitters or those helpers would be bad, but that Maya is essentially has been in an environment that trained her to see things that a typical sibling wouldn't. And that is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it is. And there's Maya has her own grief around it, right? Like, she sees her friends, going to the
Yeah.
nail salon with their sisters,
Yep. Yep.
and she's like, I wish I could do that with Gracie, right? And so she has the grief all around that
Yeah.
also.
My daughter came home, my Morgan came home a couple weeks ago and said, we're talking about college entry essays. And I'm thinking in seventh grade, okay. Well, we're talking about college entrance essays. And all of my friends, right? All of my friends. Okay. So there's all these grand, all my people say, gosh, you're going to have such an easy time with how hard your life is. And she was so mad. She was like,
Yeah.
it's just, so you're saying I'm going to have an easy essay entrance time getting into college because my life's so hard. I'm like, okay, let's strip it down.
Mm-hmm.
Friends are your same age and they're trying to relate and say, we see you, Morgan. We see how much you carry. But a typical teen and big sister doesn't want to feel that. They just want to be seen in the minutia of everyone
Yeah.
else and struggle with a college entrance essay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And then it's got that like, so I don't know. There's just something so like, oh, it's going to be given to me just because I've happened to live this life.
Right. That's right.
Right? It's like, no, like I've also earned this. I just also write an essay. Right? Like, yeah, I know.
Where do you feel like you personally have expanded as a just simply as Shannon? I know a lot of this is so difficult and we're treading through muck and behaviors and I always say it forces me into the present more than I ever would have probably wanted to. But what has been the greatest skill that you've gained through the pain and the hard?
I have I've said on our podcast before, like I used to be the mom in Target that would be like, you clearly do not discipline your kids. And then God was like, here's Gracie. Right. And
Shannon,
so
hold my beer for 1 second.
he's like, yeah, let me show you. And I think it's because like I grew up in a pretty, I don't know, my parents were wonderful, but like there was discipline, there was, and then that's how I raised Maya. And
Mhm.
Gracie came along and I always tell people I'm like the best friend to have because your kid can do the weirdest things around me and I'll be in the background like whooping it up like Arsenio. Like, like I feel like I've seen it all, right? And so I am just a lot more open of a person. I am much less judgmental of a person. I see that mom in Target now and I, give her a little like, I
Mhm.
see you, thumbs up, like you're crushing it. I get it, especially with autism because our kids, Gracie doesn't present like she has, any type of diagnosis. You look at her and you would never know. And so I think that it's hard for parents who are in a store and their child's having a sensory meltdown and nobody around them understands what's going on. And um, that sort of thing. And then I have learned to celebrate the tiniest things. And my husband shared a Facebook memory the other day, and it was Gracie at speech therapy when she was, quote, nonverbal, non speaking. And she was playing in the ball pit with her therapist, and she stood up and she says, "Ah, nut." And it was like this big, huge win, and it was like the cutest thing. And she's a Mickey Mouse stan, and it was an
Yeah,
episode where Donald Duck says, "Ah, nuts," right? And it actually has made me a little sad looking back on Maya because I was like,
yeah.
God, we celebrate the tiniest things for Gracie. Like, how many of those tiny things did we take for granted with
I know.
Maya?
I think about that so much. I mean, again, Inchstones was like the thing over milestones, right? That rose for me in this crazy whatever, platform and way I'm living.
Yeah.
But it really does. There is it's a soreness a little bit about what I might have missed
Hmm.
with my oldest. Like,
Hmm.
where was I so focused on achieving the dream or the white picket fence life that I was so hell bent on the photo and the vision of it that her smallest of moments, I absolutely know I was not as aware.
Hmm.
And
I
it
know.
doesn't make it wrong, but I do think now maybe there are things that I get to witness in a better place because of what I have to do with the younger two.
Well, and I think we just notice things. So, like, I will notice things in my friends' children who are neurotypical, right? And just like celebrate those tiny things. Like, maybe they just made this really great choice. Like, maybe we're playing at the park and they did something that it's like, that's so outstanding. But other people don't really notice. I think we're so trained to look at, I feel like we're always on, which is exhausting, right?
Mhm.
Like, just that hypervigilance that we have to have. But then there are some little benefits that come with that because I think we do get to pick out those things that a lot of people do miss.
Now, like you said, Gracie's almost 11 or she's 11.
She'll be 11 in June, yeah.
for 8 or 9 years. What do you tell, or what would you tell a mother or caregiver who is just receiving that diagnosis if they come to you and say, Shannon, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. Throw the timelines away. I was so hell bent on timelines. And Gracie just stuck it to me, man. Like, she just, and I laugh because
The
she's,
timeline mom, and I raise you a real sensory diet.
yeah, she just stuck it to me. Like, everything that I ever thought should be, she was like, yeah, let me show you something else. And I was just so hell bent on timelines and things that needed to happen. And are we behind or aren't we behind? Or how many hours of speech therapy are we doing? And Gracie has done almost every single thing that I was worried about in her own time. And I was so worried about it not being now or not being by this time or not. I was so wrapped up in that. But she's always come through. Like, she's always figured it out. I remember sitting at our first like in-home, speech therapy thing, and then just saying like, I just want her to be able to communicate with me. Like, I want her, if she needs something, I want her to take my hand and take me to the fridge. It
Yes.
doesn't even have to be words.
Yes.
I just need something. And then now, like, she's texting me from her iPad. Like, she asked me last night, she wanted to go to Texas Roadhouse, right?
Wow.
I think back of all of the worry and all of the stress that I put on myself when she wasn't doing things on the timeline that I had. And I think, like, how much more joy could I have had in those moments if I just would have released it?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we're not working. It doesn't mean we're not doing speech or we're not working on communication or all of that stuff. I think there could have been a lot more joy in the process if I just let go a little bit and let her do her thing.
Yeah. And I think that the more mothers that are earlier on in this that are
Mhm.
fighting this desire, whether it's conscious or unconscious, to keep moving, keep going, keep, chipping away. Sometimes that's rooted in for me, and I think I can speak for a lot, that maybe if I go faster and faster and keep moving on it, maybe we'll catch up.
Mhm.
And I think that there is this like baked in need to lay down and let go of catching
Yeah.
up, because the catching up is actually only based on that child catching up
And
to.
who's it benefiting?
Yeah.
The catch up race. Like, who does it benefit? And I think the other thing too is, like, just because your child qualifies for 40 ABA hours, it doesn't mean your child has to do 40 ABA hours.
Mhm.
You know, IEP goals for us are no longer, I mean, there's some educational based IEP goals, but like,
Mhm.
one of our IEP goals is, when asked, "What's your name?" Gracie can answer what her name is. And when asked, "What's your address?" Gracie can recite her address. Like, and I think you just have to get to that point where you realize, like, there are ways to tailor what your child needs. And you just have to kind of throw away the rest. Like, the rest of it doesn't matter.
And I think that you're hitting on something that I'm so glad is rising as we end this conversation, is that your needs, like Shannon and your family, for your daughters, specifically for Gracie, and then your husband, and then Sarah, and then, Britt and all these other people, like whatever those needs are for your family, that's okay to have those needs. If your need for Gracie, based on your life and your world, is for her to attempt to achieve that, that's right and good. No one is here to force a skill or ability that doesn't fit for your family. I think that's true for like any typical family, in, specifically in the United States, of like, well, that doesn't work for my family. This does work for my family. If Millie is able to say, my mom is Sarah and her number is blah, 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 that's huge on a device, right? But that might not be what aligns for someone else that's getting a diagnosis and they want their achieve X. Be okay with the fact that you don't need to want or desire a skill or a behavior or like a growth to be what someone else wants. It's okay for you to want. I'm trying to think of something that was important to me that probably wouldn't be important to someone else. Like Millie walking the dog around the neighborhood. I just really wanted her to be able to hold the leash because I felt important for her to get her legs moving every day. That doesn't really probably echo with a lot, but for me it does. And for my family it does. And so I
Yeah.
think you're such a good reminder of saying, in those IEP meetings, in those one-on-ones where you're the advocate for Gracie and for your family, what works best for you is important.
Yeah, it does. And we're the ones that have to live with it, right? Like, this is our life every
Right.
single day. And most of our team does not go home and live with autism,
No.
right?
Shannon, thank you for this beautiful conversation. You're so
Anytime.
real. You are my girl. I'm like, where is our coffee right next to each other? But I think that you and the other MTA ladies illuminate so beautifully how much support is within a group of autism moms, but how unique each journey is and how the emotional roller coaster, but the emotional journey and like the timeline are all so different for women and mothers experiencing the exact same diagnoses. And that should be beautifully, I hope that the more in which we have these one-on-ones, it can be beautifully freeing for any mom on
Yes,
their own.
absolutely.
All right. Well, Shannon Korza, thank you for being here on Inchstones today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. Until next time here on the Inchstones podcast.